Holy cow. Welcome to the show, Colonel Roland, sir, dude.
Sir, thank you very much, Red. I hope you
That
had
that
fun. I hope you had fun with that.
I had fun with that. I read it like 5 times before we were going to meet up, and I thought I had it like a breeze. But as I'm reading it, you have quite the resume. And as a young man, let me just hit you right as a young man. You're 16 years old. Are you in like Boy Scouts? Are you swimming? What are you doing at 16, 17 before you go off to high school, college graduation?
Well, that's interesting. You should ask that. That particular period between 16 and the time I entered the Army, my principal focus was sports, and I went to school at that time at a place called Pelham Memorial High School in Westchester County in New York. And again, the principal focus was football, wrestling, boxing, believe it or not, and track and field. All of that served me very, very well for a decision that I had made many, many years before, and that was to become a soldier. And so, armed with that, I entered the Army and then the Virginia Military Institute in 1969.
So you enlisted.
Uh, Initially, but that was very short lived, primarily because of my football background. The Army decided that, maybe I could play football for them. But there was no room at the United States Army Preparatory School, so I ended up on a bus to a place that I hold in extremely high esteem, and that was the Virginia Military Institute, and I was commissioned a second lieutenant from there in 1973.
So you're definitely a Vietnam baby.
Uh, yeah, of course, my actions all occurred after
Yeah.
the conflict. But my brother served there, and I'm very, very proud of him, and very, very proud of my family's legacy with respect to service. My father and his four brothers all served in the Great World War II. They are my heroes, and they were the basis upon my decision very early in life to become a soldier.
That's very powerful. I also joined because of the family. My father, former Green Beret, and I just idolized that. That was my father, my hero. And my grandfather, World War II Navy. My dad also Vietnam Navy. So you just have this legacy. And then to come to find out later in life, after my dad was adopted, didn't find out his dad until he had died. But his dad was in Vietnam the same year he was in Vietnam, and he never knew that.
Yeah,
It's like they were
wonderful
just going to
story.
pass each other. So there's just this weird legacy. I'm wearing Tiger Stripe right now. I just can't help it. I'm a 70s child. So before I get into the hard hitting stuff with you, when you decided to go infantry, was that because you just wanted to go infantry, or were you pulled out of basic into infantry? I'm curious about that. Is that like a job that you chose?
Well, I mentioned my legacy. Very, very proud of my father and his brothers. But my father was an infantryman. When he initially went in the Army, he was assigned, believe it or not, to the coastal artillery because he was a phenomenal, mechanically inclined individual. And he became an expert on all weapons from the 16 inchers that we all know from the battleships, but were also the big coastal artillery guns, right down to the small arms of the day, the Garand, the O3 Springfield, the Thompson machine gun. And he could take those things and put them back to take them apart, put them back together again, fix them. He was an amazing man that way. Uh, but as the war progressed, he was tired of sitting in Connecticut, where he actually engaged a German submarine off the coast. But that was not enough for him. So he volunteered for the infantry, and was decorated for heroism during the Central European Campaign in 1944-45. That, I thought, was the standard, along with my uncle Mark, who was very badly wounded fighting with the 29th Infantry Division during the assault on the Siegfried Line. They were my heroes. And I thought, you know what? That's what I want to be. I want to be an infantry officer, and that's what I put all of my efforts toward on the athletic fields, and eventually on the drill fields of the Virginia Military Institute.
Now let's flash forward to 2001 9/11. So I remember I was in bed. My dad woke me up. He's like, "Hey, Aaron, wake up. Turn the TV on." We were watching the TV of the first tower smoking. Second one got hit. At that moment, he looked at me and he just said, "We're under attack."
Yeah, let me tell you, that was quite an eye opener. And for me, I had just arrived at United States Central Command the month before, having successfully commanded United States Task Force Sinai. I was very, very proud of having been selected for that assignment, where, by the way, I also served as the Chief of Staff of the multinational force. And of course, I speak about that in the book that I wrote, In Strange Company. But I was sitting in my office on 11 September, and I actually had the news on when the first aircraft hit the building, and I thought to myself, oh my God, what a terrible, terrible accident. And I said that because you may not be aware of this, but in 1945, I believe it was a B-17 bomber on its way back from Europe that had flown into the Empire State Building. A similar kind of event. But then the second plane hit, and I got up from behind my desk, and I walked into my boss's office, and I said, "Sir, something's not right, and I believe we've been attacked." And then, of course, shortly after that, the truth became known, and we started gearing up at United States Central Command to deploy a forward headquarters to Afghanistan. And the rest is history.
And you talk about this history, and you mentioned it in Strange Company. I do want to mention that you've wrote a book, and you're out there talking about this and wanting to let people know about it. And I don't forget about that. You know, I just want folks to know that you started out without really a recruiter coming at you, except for your family wanting to join the military. You had this passion, and I want to reignite that passion with someone who may listen to this, and they may want to join and take that next step. So, you know, we need those Constitution fighters out there.
Well, I think that's particularly important, and especially today.
Yes.
You know, I am very, very concerned about what's going on in today's armed forces. And I believe that some of the policies that we've seen of late have led to a lot of young men, and I say men, we need men in our Army and our Marine Corps and the other services, to look elsewhere, to not want to serve in given what they have seen of late. And it's something that I understand, and something that I think will change very shortly. Because let me tell you, Rad, as you well know, the enemy has a vote in how we perform on the battlefield. And right now, I am very, very concerned that the status of readiness of our armed forces, and I'm particularly the Army and the Marine Corps. Those ground combat organizations that are manpower intensive, okay, is not up to snuff. I think that far too much time is being placed on nonsensical issues that frankly are driving a lot of our young men, as I indicated previously, to think about doing other things. I believe that will change. I believe that will change perhaps in 2025 when we might be seeing a change in leadership. I don't know. But I'm certainly hopeful of that.
As a colonel, someone who climbed that grade ladder, with all diligence, if some Congress could hold up 300 appointments just because they want to be able to play games with your job, that would make you, with all of this knowledge and all of this schooling and all of this leadership, maybe look to the civilian market versus like, hey, why would I want to work for someone who can just like put their thumb on me when I'm supposed to be the one defending, the oppressed?
Well, I would only say this. I am familiar with the issue that you just raised, and I always viewed that as a temporary situation that certain congressmen engaged in order to perpetrate a positive action on the part of our administration and perhaps our military to do other things that they thought were badly needed, and I'm inclined to think, as I just said, are very badly needed. But having said that, I think that young men today are not going to be overly concerned with that particular issue. Ultimately, the United States Armed Forces have always dealt with our Congress and with civilian leaders, a number of whom, unfortunately, true today, don't know one end of a rifle from the other, and never walked a mile in yours or my shoes, or the shoes of countless other millions who have in fact served this nation. And so to the young folks out there who think otherwise, I am inclined to say, look, in 1961, a man stood up who was a Democratic president, and he said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And I think that holds true not only for the time that he raised that in 1961, but it certainly holds true today. We will continue as senior officers to deal with the Congress, and they will be as irresponsible as they were in 1781 when they were not paying our army and Washington had to do everything he could to keep an army in the field during the Treaty of Paris discussions that eventually ended the war. We've always dealt with these things, Rad, and our nation will ultimately prevail. But we need young men, and we need them now to recognize that they need to serve their country, that freedom isn't free.